back.
I'll turn it on.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, Maya. I'll do a little intro and we will start our chat. So we have Maya. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Everyone, this is some representatives from the Carolina Birth Junkies. Let's start with you, Maya.
Hi, I'm Kim in North Carolina, in Charlotte. What else do you want to know about?
So for actually, we'll just do short introduction. So that's great, Maya. Okay, and who's next to you?
Hi, I'm Brooke. I'm also a midwife in the Charlotte area, North Carolina.
Fantastic. Hi, Brooke.
That's Christine.
Same. Hi, Christine. And Christine, you're also a CPM in, is it the Charlotte area?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. And so just as another introduction for anybody who's popping in and for if we do some cutting or editing later, my name is Jessica Johnston. This is the Pacific Birth Institute's weekly education series called Birth Working. And this is a special segment that is the first of hopefully many where we're going to focus on the state of birth. And we're going to do different editions per state. So to kick it off, I can't believe we're starting in North Carolina, but you know what? I can't actually think of a better place to start this conversation. Our State of Birth series is going to focus on a little bit of what is happening currently, a little of the history of what's happened in the state, how it is impacting what's happening currently, and where providers would like to see it go. So we're looking at the impacts on the families and how they're served or not served, on the providers, on the way they can practice in the state, on the ways they're not allowed to practice in the state. We can look at pay discrepancies. A lot of different things will come up, but this part of the series is going to really be about the state of birth, and especially around midwifery licensure, regulation, and in some places, criminalization or decriminalization. So let's just jump in. I would love to hear a little bit about first the Carolina Birth Junkies. Tell us about what this organization is, why you started, and what you do.
This is all Christine. This is all me. Okay. So we started Birth Junkies about 10 years ago with a kind of way to bring together North Carolina and South Carolina midwives because they're very different legally and regulations and so forth. So, but we really wanted to have a way for everyone to get together and have a lot of educational opportunities. We do a retreat every year, which is the best. And that's kind of just, it's also been a way for us to kind of help each other out, you know, because regulations are so different, but because we work closely together, we're able to kind of serve people better, I feel like.
Okay. I love that. Wonderful. And so you offer, well, we're going to have some fun in June, aren't we? You guys, I know that you help organize continuing education units for midwives in practice, that you also offer. I saw you did a birth assistant training about a month ago, so that you offer birth assistant training for people who want to become midwives in the area. And any other courses, anything else we should know that CBJ is putting on? You've got your 10th anniversary coming up here in August, and you guys have a fantastic lineup going on for that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
That'll be me.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we try and do some type of training every month, whether that is a skills refresher or, you know, a completely new educator to come and teach us something that we don't have a skill in already, or, you know, new hot off the press information. And then our retreat, you know, is our big culmination. It's the area where we get most of our CEUs and things like that. And again, it's a way for us to bridge gaps between the North Carolina, South Carolina midwives. And we have people come from other states, but obviously the focus is those two states.
I love it. I love it. And now, of course, that I'm down in South Carolina, I'm so excited to be around such proactive midwives, especially inside of a state that is not that proactive. So real quick advertisement. We're going to be doing IV pharmacology together in Charlotte in the end of June. So keep an eye out on that on the Carolina Birth Junkies website. I will be going to teach IV pharmacology and new standards around TXA, GBS, IAP, and Pitocin IVs. Yay! And then I'll be speaking as a panel speaker at the 10th anniversary retreat. So if you want to see me and Carolina Birth Junkies in action, a nice little collaboration with Pacific Birth Institute and CBJ, come find us on pacificbirthinstitute.com and carolinabirthjunkies.com. Okay, But what you just brought up, Brooke, I love. Now that I'm in the Carolinas, I gotta be honest, I'm from Alaska. Do you know what Alaska is in the world of midwifery as far as the states are concerned? We're Disneyland. Yep. We are Disneyland. Why? Because midwifery has a strong heritage in Alaska, and that is based a lot on the rural status of most of the state, right? There are about 4 major places that have hospitals. Otherwise, you're out, right? And so midwives, we still have maternity care deserts in Alaska because we don't have at least one midwife in place in certain places, right? So even in a place that has 7% out of hospital birth, that's Alaska. If you go 30 miles north of Anchorage to the Wasilla area, it's 20% out of hospital birth. So Alaska has had strong regulation, licensure, education stuff, all this stuff in place. And it really came into the beginning of like the 90s that they had to start, okay, we are legitimate. We are now getting paid by Medicaid, right? So in Alaska, we get paid by Medicaid. We got paid by private insurance. We are state licensed, right? All of these things. I moved to the Carolinas. I live less than an hour away from North Carolina right now. And people are like, you could get in real big trouble doing what you do, being there. And so let's talk about that. What's going on in North Carolina for CPMs? We'll start there. And unmute if you haven't.
All right, guess they nominated me. CPMs are not currently legal or licensed in North Carolina, right? So we have practiced underground for a very long time. With that, there's been midwives here for a long, long time. It's not that there haven't been midwives until recently. I mean, in the past 5 years or so, there were very few. It was hard to find that community, all of that. So like CBJ and all of that has really increased the exposure of midwives. But we practice very much in a way that is, okay, word of mouth. We have to talk about what you don't say to providers or other people or things like that. That's how it feels still in that. And, you know, we all know somebody who's been arrested. We all know somebody who has that kind of thing in their background going on. And it's very much a part of our training. It's a part of like the conversation we have when anybody wants to come a midwife with that. So I think it was about 2 years ago, the NM got, yeah, a little less than 2 years then that CNMs got licensed to practice without a doctor oversight on that. That has changed things a little bit, in that more CNMs are coming into North Carolina, starting to set up practices, and definitely expanding that horizon.
And a little bit. To clarify, CNMs can legally practice community birth. They can be, do you have birth centers, but they have to be CNM?
Yes, they have to be CNM in North Carolina. And there are very few birth centers, not many at all.
They don't have any
Okay. Now, you said about the CPM, everyone knows someone who's either been arrested or is going through something like that. So CPMs are not legal in North Carolina, but they are illegal. They are illegal. How do CPMs get in trouble? I'm using air quotes for those who are just listening, not watching, right? How did they get in trouble there?
It's currently a misdemeanor if somebody turned you in practicing medicine without a license. That's essentially where it is. It's usually because we have to go to the hospital, a client's parents, relative, something like that is going to report something. If there's a bad outcome, if there's even a potential, that's more what it usually comes from, honestly, with that. So it's currently only a misdemeanor, but you know how those charges get rolled into. Oh, if there was a bad outcome, now it gets bumped up. Now we can add more onto that. That's really where it goes.
Okay, then let me ask you, I'd like to ask, what does decriminalization look like? Does it look like a positive thing to go for as far as regulation for birth instead of licensure for CPMs? Would that be a better move, do you think? Or what is the opinion you think? Go ahead.
A lot of people actually would like decriminalization, especially to start with. because
Okay.
we've all watched the states around us, the new states coming in, end up with terrible licensure laws. One of the things that we appreciate in North Carolina is having the ability to do breaches, to do twins, to do past 2 weeks, to do all of the things, VBACs, all of those things that are more regulated often in other states around us. C&Ms have the same regulations. They can't do any of those things. Their laws are locking them into a tiny box, and we don't want that.
Well,
we really
and yeah, even beyond their laws, I've seen birth center laws written that lock provider type, that lock out client types, right?
Yep.
Oh, can't do VBAC at the birth center, but you can do VBAC at home. We had that in Alaska. Can't do VBAC reach or twins at the birth center, but you can do it at home, right? And so, and we had that only with C&M until we were able to open more towards CPM standard, right? That CPMs are trained to do those things, and we still had to fight for that even. And so I can appreciate the conversation that you're bringing forward, which is licensure the best way to get more midwives in practice and keep them there? When you brought up, somebody who's been arrested, all of this, I'm from a state that really did good work, let's say, really good work as far as the nation's, concerned for making sure they had more midwives. Okay. But through licensure processes and things like that. And I know many people who are under investigation, licensed midwives who are under investigation, sitting, waiting for years because something is sitting somewhere in someone's desk and they don't know if they're going to be able to practice one day. And they are in states that are fully licensed. And so decriminalization, go ahead, please.
That's what we have is, will this do us any good? To get licensed, is it going to be any better? It's not going to actually protect us more. Not really. Yeah. So that's always the battle, I think, of that is, well, licensure doesn't protect you anymore. Our hospital is always going to be on the edge of okay for so many people. And I would far rather just decriminalize it and say, just go from there because it seems safer than setting up bad rules or rules that are, in such a small box that nobody's actually going to do them. And then you just made it worse for yourself.
And it's interesting because so many people misalign competency and skill to regulation. Like that without a delineated, you must transfer at this or this, that we're just dumb, dirty midwives who won't know how to do our job. Right. And so what I've seen, the balance of what you write into law to ensure community standard, right, and competence can bite you in the butt later as your body's your credentialing body changes what it can do. If you've written too much into law, now you've got to bureaucratically do what we had to do in Alaska. We got to go have meetings with the Department of Commerce. And I've got to tell them what we do. First, I got to educate them on what the hell we do every time. Why? Right? They hold our ability, they have the ability to restrict our trade and hold our livelihood on the line. And yet we're deemed safer that they have that oversight because we wrote things down and put them in law. Right? So when it comes to CPM students, how is that going in North Carolina? Are a lot more CPMs are just moving in there already credentialed? Or are you having students who do train in North Carolina? It's okay. Take your time.
There we go. We actually have a midwifery school in Charlotte that I run. And so we have tons of students. We have more students than we can precept,
Okay.
And there's actually a very strong home birth community in Charlotte, but it's so underground. So it's like, you got to know somebody who knows somebody to find a midwife. And also it's hard for things like consults. If you have someone that has a problem, you better know the underground route to get them what they need, right? Things like meds, right? No one will ship you meds if you're in an unlicensed state. So,
Mm.
the basic things can be really tricky. So we're kind of struggling with that a little bit,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of people that want to work in this field. It's just trying to get the, just trying to get the preceptors and trying to get enough people. I mean, there's more than enough clients for
Mhm.
all.
Okay. That was going to
work.
be my next question. Here we're looking at the CPM student body. I was going to ask, I know that there was talk earlier that it is very word of mouth, right? That clientele comes by word of mouth. Can you tell me a little bit more about what do the families need, right? How many more? I mean, everybody needs more midwives, but really, right? They're finding you have more than enough clients, it sounds like. Say more about that with the populations that you guys are working with.
Yeah. I'm gonna let Brooks talk about that a little bit. So we just had an exciting birth.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, most months, I would say the majority of midwives in our area actually are turning people away. When you have someone who moves in last minute. So this month, I started out, golly, in January, I only had 2 clients and I have done 6 births already this month. Because we had a couple people who had been in midwifery care, their husband's job got transferred, they moved in the area, and everybody was full. And then there's certainly the midwives who don't feel comfortable taking last minute clients, particularly in an illegal state, because that's just, you don't have the relationship, there's not that loyalty, so it can be a little more challenging. And I know in June, all the midwives are full and I have been turning people away for months. So their clientele is here, but we need more midwives and we're not going to get a lot more midwives until people feel a little safer. We have several CPMs that live here that do not practice because of the illegal status.
Yeah. Can I ask, is there a risk to you being able to carry your CPM credential for practicing in a state without licensure?
Norm's very aware of the different state regulations, so that isn't a risk.
Fantastic. Because I mean, we can't be telling people to go get a CPM credential if they could lose it, right? Like that, we'd have to change the whole thing, I want to hear
Right.
more. Christine, tell me about your school. Tell me about your school and tell me how because the replays really for the students and our student groups, they're going to want to hear this.
Oh,
So
great.
tell me about your school and how you do it.
Yeah, so back in the day, way back in the day, when I was a student midwife, I went through H&R midwifery. And that was back when you got a big old binder in the mail kind of thing. You had to like type stuff on your typewriter, and mail it in kind of thing. Well, then after I've been practicing for a while, I was like, gosh, and I've always wanted to have a school, even when I first started. That was always a big goal for me. And it didn't really happen in the situation I was in. And then one day I was just like, gosh, I really would like to do this. And then Carla Hartley actually sold the school to a friend of ours that lives in the Charlotte area, Lori Barton.
Cool.
And which is really cool. And I was like, Lori, hey, I've been thinking about doing this school, but I don't really want to like make up a curriculum or whatever. She's like, why don't you just lease ours and start a school, in-person school? I was like, excellent. So that's what we did. And Brooke was one of my very first graduates. She was in the first graduating class. And Maya, who was on here.
And one other
person were in a person. And so now it's still going strong. And we actually have we have an in-person class. And then I also have a virtual version of the class too that we do. That's all online. So yeah, it's been great.
And so students in the in-person, if they're near you, they get to work with you in person and then they have some online stuff they probably do, but they get to meet up with you every now and then, or how does that work?
Well, yeah, we actually do like class time every week. Together, we do class, we do skills, all that stuff. So and I don't take them all to births. Do you know what I mean? Because that's just too many. Right. They have to have their own preceptor, which is
okay.
It works too because so many of the midwives in Charlotte now have been through the school and they get it. And so they're happy to be like, who's ready? And I was like, oh, try these people. So
It's
it's
also
really
a
great.
self,
Yeah.
it's also a self-weeding process because those who don't have the drive, don't have the motivation,
To do the school. Yeah.
don't want to, do the classwork, don't want to put in the effort to get a preceptor, show their preceptor, why they're a value and an asset. They kind of weed themselves out and you're really left with the people who are committed to the two-step process.
Well, we have the birth assistant training, and originally it started just like you as like a little Google Doc kind of thing where we were meeting up in person. This is pre-pandemic, right? Meeting up in person and doing some skills. They were doing a little bit of online work in between, right? For birth assistant training. And then the pandemic hit and we had to go all online. But what we noticed, we ran 5 cohorts between 2019 and 2023. And what we noticed was we had really good response actually from students who were so happy that they had the time with this contained experience to figure out this was not for them. And I thought that was really interesting. A lot of these larger institutions and these larger pathways, like a full-on PEP pathway or a full commitment to a MEEC, can be very time, personal money, and, like very expensive. A lot of has to go in, right? And it takes years to become a midwife. This is not overnight. It takes years to become a midwife. And so I love that your school's giving them a lot of the exposure early, just like our trainings were, so that it's like, hey, you don't like being on call? You don't like this? It does not get better. It doesn't get easier. It doesn't get less. None of this gets less. In fact, you're going to see things that are going to blow your mind, like that you would and I had one student who's like, you saved me years because I had been dreaming about getting into birth for years. I had made it so beautiful in my mind. And then I got the chance and I had this 6-month thing, right? The 6-month container of birth assistant training, being on call. And she's like, I can't do it. I don't like the lifestyle. I don't like, and I was so grateful for the honesty. And she was so grateful for the contained experience that didn't cost her mortgage or her husband or any of that. Right. And so having school that is accessible, it really does allow for the midwifery population to grow quickly because it gets people who can't do it out fast and before they lose a ton of money and possibly their marriage. Right? Because that's what we see in midwifery. Without good containment and good support, people's lives can fall apart. Right. And we're looking at North Carolina where you're already in a position where you can't really even have a website that says you're as capable as you are.
Sure.
Nope.
Yeah. We're all childbirth educators and doulas around here.
Talk about it. Well, and on the topic of decriminalization versus licensure, the number one way you can round up and burn some midwives is if you put your name on a list and call yourself a midwife. So there's a lot of places that are like, I don't want a registry here. Actually, I want to be left alone, right? People will find us. They always do. Always do, right? So when you look at what's going forward, right, where you're at in 2025, and if you're looking forward, especially because not only are you practicing midwives, you're educators, right? And you're in your preceptors. What would you love to see? If you could just landscape it, right? And you could just look forward 10, 15, 30 years, what would you love to see?
Oh, that's a big question.
I know.
I think for me, the very first, and I'll let Christine answer next, the first thing that comes to my mind is a collaborative pathway for transports. If I could just flip a switch and change one thing, I would like to be able to call a hospital and say, we're coming in with this situation, and it be respected and acknowledged versus like, oh, well, I'm sure it's a hot mess and they probably don't know what they're talking about. And this, I, as a doula, would transport in with home birth clients so the midwives didn't have to go in. And the number of times I watched doctors and nurses throw away the paperwork, the SBAR, the labs, any other chart information we brought in, and just throw it in the trash. They never looked at it. It wasn't acknowledged. It wasn't considered real care. real information, and it wastes so much time and so many resources and creates so many bad outcomes that then get blamed on us. And it's like, no, the problem was the 90 minutes it took for anyone to repeat what we already had done and then respond to it. That's where the wheels fell off the bus. We didn't come in with the wheels off the bus.
Nope.
We came before then, and so for me, like, there's 100 things I would love to change, but that right there, if we could just safely walk into a hospital, even if they still don't appreciate or respect us, but hear us and use what we give them to help the client, that would alter everything right there.
I love it. I took a note of it too. I mean, I sit on the Alaska Birth Advisory Committee, which is the collaborative transport model that the Alaska Perinatal Quality Collaborative, consisting of NICU, MFM, OB, neonatologists, CPMs, doulas, all across the city of Anchorage, has a transfer phone tree, has lots of inroads for that. So I'm making notes too, because these things do exist. And what do we know? They have to come from the places with the resources. Otherwise, we burn our own trying to get the higher resource setting to acknowledge us. So a lot of this is honestly solved by it has to come top down. They have the resourcing and they need to have the buy-in and the compliance on their side. Before we upstart little things, right? There has to be that collaboration, but it has to come top down, really. Yeah. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah. And there's not. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I would add to what Brooke is saying is that we also need and want better collaboration with EMTs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Having been on the wrong side of an EMT experience multiple times, okay. And I know there's training programs out there that midwives have built and designed to help EMTs understand what they're getting into, but it's always the double-edged sword of, even if they knew what to do, are they going to scream at us because we are illegal and they think we're horrible people? Yes, okay, they will, but can we get past that and just take care of our person?
Yeah. Well, and you even brought up SBAR, so it sounds like you're doing it right. You can only do so much, right? So yeah, go ahead, Christine.
I was going to say there's kind of a general lack of knowledge about what midwives do and how we're trained, and I almost feel like when that happens, when that lack of understanding is coming from a physician, it feels very deliberate. It feels like a deliberate misunderstanding of what we do. I've had doctors tell people, "Oh, midwives, they take like a weekend course," and just stuff that is just so disrespectful, and that breeds a lot of contempt, I think, for us that are really doing a good job and really keeping up our skills and really trying to take care of people who don't want to be in that setting. They just don't want to go to the hospital. And that's something that we need to be available for them for, right? And I've had doctors tell me before, like, well, you only send us like the complicated people. And we're like, yes, exactly.
That's how well it's working. That's how well it's working, my friend.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you don't see, you're right. You don't see the fabulous, straightforward births because those people have no interest in going in. That's why they hired me. They're like, why'd you bring these people in that are like, they've been in labor forever? And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why we're here. Like, that's your job. I know, super frustrating.
Yeah. So you're bringing up public education, right? And I understand what you're saying, the deliberate disrespect, the power over versus power with treatment. Like, we're colleagues. You're acting like we're not, but we really are, because we are the people caring for her, no matter if you think I'm doing it the way you want, right? Public education does make such a huge difference. In Washington, they did one of the coolest things. You know what they do in Washington? Every successful birth center or home birth, they have a mailing service that sends postcards to the representatives of that area. So they're getting postcards all year round, all the representatives across the state that say another successful home birth completed by the midwives. It's their alliance. Okay. And I'm like, now that isn't it. That's education. advocacy, right? And that is, you cannot forget what we do and the real impact we have to your Medicaid budget, to your outcomes, to your lifelong costs, right? You may only see the babies that need help. You may only see the clients that need help. And that's why we're here. But let us inundate you consistently with how well this is working and what you're not seeing. That's to me just beautiful artwork for advocacy and education.
And I think that's kind of the fine line, right? That we're walking between saying, do we want to do decrim so that we can keep all those, skills and special traits that we have, but also the problem is that then you still can't get reimbursed from Medicaid. You still can't be reimbursed really from any standard insurance company. Like we can do HSA and a couple of the like med share things, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
No insurance payment
Well,
at
and
all.
like you brought up earlier too. So if you can't license, you can't get insurance because these are typically state law things, right? When we submitted our new statute bill in Alaska, we actually included in our statutes that location of service of birth center and home birth must be accepted by every insurance type, period, because it's about birthing choice and access. And nobody should have to make a choice about birth based on what their insurance will cover or not. That is not safe. And so that was part of our new statutes, right? Because you have to write it in law for the insurance companies to have to abide, right? And if you're in law and you get insurance companies, oh, guess what? You can get a Henry Schein account, a McKesson account. Now you can get supplies. Now you can get supplies like a provider can at wholesale. One of the biggest discrepancies we see between decrim, licensed, unlicensed, illegal states is cost, how much it costs to be a midwife. Some states with licensure, like mine, most expensive, $3,800 every 2 years to be licensed as a midwife. Most expensive professional license, $176 a month to practice, just to be licensed there. But I do get PIP for $1.08 a vial, right? I do get reimbursed well by Premera, by UHC, by all of those. Medicaid pays weekly. So we have income inroads that can offset some of that licensure cost of running midwifery and making sure everything's up to speed, whatever that looks like. Really, it was just bad books for years we're making up for still from bad investigations. But we have all that access because we're licensed. Right. And so what I understand, you want to stay in this decrim pathway, but then we need more people to be able to access midwifery with Medicaid and insurance. And we need more midwives being able to get a hold of and stay easily accessing life-saving antihemorrhagics. So from that point, anything you want to bring up we haven't talked about yet? Anything that's been pinging around? Thank you, Nicole. So grateful for this. Okay, I'm looking at the chat while you guys, you two think about that if you want. Nicole says, thank you for having these important conversations. I would like to invite everyone interested in decrim and or licensure and integration in NC to a weekly open meeting that NACPM holds to hear the thoughts and feedback of the NC midwifery community. There is an email there. Email them to receive a meeting link. All are welcome. We need more people doing this work. Thank you for dropping that in the chat, Nicole. And hi, Nisha. Thank you for introducing yourself. Please do introduce yourself in the chat. And do drop questions you have for Brooke here, Maya's back on the line, and for Christine or for me.
I really do like that idea you mentioned, and since Nicole's on here, I didn't see your name. Hi, Nicole. If we all just ask our families, like, hey, after you get through your initial postpartum phase, maybe between that 4 and 6 weeks, before you're back to real life, but not newly postpartum, send a postcard, to your representatives, even if that's all you send it to, more if you feel led to. But like I said, I've had 7 babies in 12 days. So, and I'm not one of the busiest midwives in the area. There's midwives much busier than I.
Yeah.
So that could be quite a huge impact, I think, and particularly not just coming from, I want this, but hello, here's my homeborn baby. You know, I really like that idea.
I love it. Yeah. And it's finding those creative ways. One thing we chatted about before, because everybody is like, oh yeah, pay to have a lobby. Okay. Pay to have a lobby. Okay. Yeah. Even if we have more midwives, I mean, it's still in Alaska. I think it's less than 40 licensed midwives. You want to pay for a lobbyist? Right. So we have to find these creative ways that get our message out as much as we can. And so we thought about one time buying the side of a bus. Right. And the big thing that we wanted to do it for was because the hospital was calling its maternity ward a birth center. And we were sending them a cease and desist. You are not a birth center. Birth centers are independently licensed. Stop calling your thing a birth center. That's misadvertisement. And so we wanted the side of a bus to be like, this is not a birth center. And a picture over, this is a birth center, right? Midwives Association of Alaska. Don't be lied to, right? Because a lot of that marketing, their lobbies have SEO managers. You think they aren't doing these hot word searches? You think they don't see how they're trending? And you don't think they're capitalizing on keywords to pull people in? A lot in states that have licensure where they feel like midwifery is saturated. So you have licensed midwives, good access, and it feels like there are too many midwives, right? And midwives are like, I don't know if I'll have enough clients. You'll hear that in certain places. It's like, well, you need to be going for the 92% of low risk clients that don't even know you exist, that are just going to go to an OB because they don't know midwifery is there. They don't know it might be better for their vaginal delivery outcomes and odds. They don't know those things. And so how can we get the most information in front of the most people without ruffling feathers in certain states like North Carolina, right? To make that educated impact and to increase that for everybody. So, oh, hi, Sonia. Hello, all. Family chiropractor and home birth mom here. And I don't want to butcher this, so I'll try one. Chautauqua. Hello,
Yes,
student
Chautauqua, hello.
Hi, thank you for voicing in there. Yeah, hello, student midwife. I'm so glad to see everybody in here, from student midwives to people who it looks like work a little bit more on the let's talk about it side. Oh, fantastic. Sonia, I'd love to help provide postcards to families and send to their legislators. Okay, we'll take a little commercial break here. Hawaii, January 15th through 19th, 2026. We're going to be in Kona. We rented a house. We have a chef. 4 nights, 15 CEUs. We're going to take a little buggy to an emerald sand beach one night. We're going to go play on the beach. We're going to go shopping. So we're going to do only CEU stuff in the morning, where we are fed by our chef breakfast and lunch. And then we're going to go play all day. We're going to do it from a Thursday, and we're going to check out on a Monday. It's on the website, pacificbirthinstitute.com. Come join us. Midwife, student midwife, right? But it is CEUs. So those midwives, those will be good for CEUs. And then, yeah, I think that's it. In commercial break. Okay, any questions from the audience? Please drop them now. We're going to open up, or you can open your mic and we can Q&A right now. I'm going to think about my last couple of questions for you. When it comes to North Carolina in particular, you said that CNMs are moving in and expanding. I always have a question right about that. What are their transfer rates? Do you know?
Don't know the exact numbers, but I do know, just from being friendly with several of them, their rates are a little higher than the CTMs,
Okay.
due to the nature of their regulations.
Okay.
So it's not always transports because of their comfort level, but a lot of transport based on their regulations. A lot of 42-weekers. A lot of times twins are
How are you doing?
breaches, things like that. Certain blood pressures or automatic cutoffs and things of that nature. So a little bit higher for that reason.
And that was going to be my follow-up question. Is their transfer rate due to their comfort in community birth, their knowledge, their training, their experience for doing home and birth center delivery? Or is it a total byproduct of their licensure? And maybe it's a mix sometimes, right? Some people don't get the training in the community, get through a whole CNM pathway, do go to move to work into the community. And it's so different than the nursing background and any nursing or CNM in hospital experience they've had. They're like, whoa, wait a second, because they don't directly translate.
Yeah, and I would say there is a mix of that here. There are some we have in this area who trained as CNMs, even with home birth backgrounds themselves, due to the fact that they could be licensed. And so those tend to be a lot more comfortable with some situations that maybe some of the CNMs that are newly out of the hospital system are not as comfortable with. But they all have the same parameters that tie their hands for sure.
Yeah. You know, one thing when we look at, as you go forward, do you know, what are the current bills sitting? Do you have any Senate, House, any bills, any statute, regulate, anything that you're trying to put forward or that you know that the state of North Carolina is?
Nicole is our legislative representative that's on the call right now.
Fantastic.
Tell us, Nicole.
Would you like to voice in, Nicole?
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Can you
please
hear me?
share.
Hi. So currently right now, NCACPM has a bill. It's in drafting. It hasn't come out of drafting yet, so we don't have a bill number yet.
Okay.
But it is focused on licensure and integration of CPMs here in North Carolina, and we're working to figure out how to navigate that pathway this legislative session.
Okay. May I ask, you're going for licensure and regulation of CPMs. Are you going to be defining practice scope and standards, or will you be using language that says this CPM can practice according to the scope set by their credentialing body?
So we are working very hard. Our intention and goal is to keep the legal statute language very broad-based and open, and with the goal of not increasing penalties or restricting practice for people that are not interested in licensure as a certified professional midwife. That's certainly a top goal that we have as an organization, while also being transparent about the fact that our goal as a professional organization at this point in time is licensure for certified professional midwives that are interested in that. We definitely have heard a little bit of interest, but people haven't been engaging with us very much around the decrim idea. That is something that has been a part of our legislative efforts in the past. And at this point in time, our person power is so incredibly limited and stretched thin that we are working in the spaces where we can. And like I said in the message, we're definitely open and interested in supporting people who would like to take the lead in that charge around a specific decrim piece. It's just not something that we have been able to focus on, given the limited person power that we currently have at our disposal.
And I want to reiterate what I thought I heard you saying, which is the piece is mostly CPM licensure reg and integration so that you can open pathways, payments, provide all of that, right? But you want with this, you do want nestled with it, a decrim for anyone who does practice, we'll call it the birth arts or the midwifery arts, and chooses not to license. You're trying to make sure those two things can come together.
We are open to providing support to folks who are interested in taking the lead and the charge around that piece of things.
Okay.
People have not stepped forward to take on those roles at this point in time. So like I said, we very much are open. The reason we're holding weekly open meetings is because we want to hear from the midwifery community. We really want the midwifery community to be more involved and to be a part of this conversation so that we can work to craft the most beneficial language and experience, possible.
Did North Carolina apply for the TEMA funding? Their
I'm
Medicaid
sorry, I'm not
office?
familiar with the TEMA
That's
funding.
okay. Yeah, I'm wondering, so Medicaid offices per state had to apply for what's called TEMA funds. It is the Transforming Maternal Health. Yeah, it's TEMA, Transforming Maternal Health is like what it is, but it's a 10-year rollout. And certain
Mhm.
states, I think not like 12 or 19 states got TEMA funds. And so I just didn't know if North Carolina's Medicaid, Alaska's Medicaid did not apply. I don't know if Florida's did. I didn't know if North Carolina's might have, because some of
I'm
those
not sure. I
might support some of this.
I feel like CPM integration was a part of some of the requirements around some of that funding. Is that correct?
It's a lot of it, the TEMA funds are to be used by Medicaid agencies to increase doulas. Midwives is kind of like, as far as like the priority, if you look up the, the Transforming Maternal Health, like what it's doing, right? And there are ways that they're trying to bring in more resourcing. So doulas, getting doulas paid by Medicaid. Midwives, some states, yes, some really are prioritizing just doulas, right? So I feel like midwives are a little lower priority, but they are inside a lot of that funding. Like, hey, we need more Medicaid providers for maternal health. And it is through the Medicaid office for the state. Because I obviously showed up the moment they said, hey, we're going to actually help this. And we were like, hey, great. And they're like, you got to talk to your Medicaid office. And I talked to the chief deputy of medical in Alaska, and they're like, our Medicaid office is less staff than us. I don't think they're applying for it. And I said, what do they need? They're like, they don't know how to use the money. And I said, well, they should have told me that earlier. I could have spent every dang dollar educating doulas and getting this doulas and midwives. That's not the hard part. We have people doing work in the streets. We already, there are people doing midwifery work in every community, right? Why are you getting that money to the Medicaid office? Give it to the community. Yeah. But
well, and given the fact, I actually believe that even nurse midwives are not able to be reimbursed for home birth care at this point in time through Medicaid here in North Carolina. I'm not 100% that that's correct, so take it with a grain of salt, but I feel like that's the case.
Would you be
I think
interested
that's
in
correct.
seeing? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
I was just agreeing with Nicole. I think that's correct because we don't know any nurse midwives who take Medicaid or even insurance because of the limitations.
Yeah. I can chat with some of the people in Alaska. Would you be interested in seeing what we submitted for our statutes and regs, just as comparison, like just midwives to midwives?
That would be amazing. And we actually have done a lot of work with this current language that we have submitted on trying to cull language from more recently licensed states to try and sort of cherry pick the best of what is out there and create, again, the very best language that we can. We also have to understand, right? We write it the way that we want it, and then we put it into the hands of the bill drafters on the legislative level, and we have to wait and see what they come out with. And then that language also can certainly be changed as the bill moves through different committees at the legislative level. So what we put in is not always what comes out, and that's something that we're really keeping a very close eye on around edits and things that are changed, because we know that it can make a really big difference.
Well,
and we want to be cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing when we were as a state, right, when we were like, wow, because in Alaska, we had to update our statutes and regulations because the financial audit committee said, you guys are not up to your national standard. So we're like, no worries, we'll update it. I know that the updates were sent to INA at NARM, like that there were a lot of things, like you said, looking at the closest, the most recent, all of this, right, that we needed to make sure to get all of that up to date. But also what we looked at were the regulations and how they were written for nurse midwives in our state. And what was nice in Alaska, because the nurse midwives in 2015 in Alaska, they went for consensus model. So, and if you know anything about the CNM consensus model push, it's very similar to what CPM's trying to do right now. CNMs who work the consensus model as states agree that CNMs are autonomous providers, that they should be paid by insurance. reasonable wages per ICD-10, that they can use prescription drugs, that they can administer medication on site, hemorrhagics, and order them, things like that, that they have a similar competency, right? And in nursing schools, they have those pathways, right? For us, we have the CPM credential, which umbrellas, at least this is one pathway, I'll say, but if we're staying on the CPM, right, it umbrellas the PEP and the MEEC so that all of that can be accounted for. And so what we noticed in the nursing language was they only had little paragraphs around their scope, their regulation, this big. And all it said was they are allowed to do whatever the hell their credentialing body says is in their scope, period. Next section.
So unfortunately,
Yeah,
here in
same
North
thing.
Carolina, yeah, yes, that is so cool. Unfortunately, here in North Carolina, it's the language in SB 20 that was passed in 2023 that gave nurse midwives autonomous practice. It referred to ACOG language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, once we saw that the nurse midwives were able to do that and practice and get paid, right, that it was, but then you have to really be really in love with CPM. And that is a whole nother hour or 10 we could spend on the nuance of actually charging the CPM forward as the licensure standard for professional midwives, for midwifery that is a non-nursing midwifery, right? And I know that can have its own. We might have to have a talk about that. Just even is the CPM the right pathway? All of us are sitting here as CPMs. Nicole, are you a CPM?
I am.
Okay. And so that's our pathway. But at this point, especially when it comes to, there's going to be a lot, it'll be a whole different talk. Let's just do a different episode, right?
Right.
Any last things you want us to know about North Carolina?
I am just really, again, grateful that you guys are having this conversation and bringing attention to the topic. And I think that the very best way for us to stay as in alignment with our integrity as we can and try and create a situation that is positive for everyone is having as many voices at the table and involved in the conversation and the work as possible. So I just really strongly want to encourage folks that have a stake in this conversation, particularly in our state of North Carolina, to please reach out and just become a part of the conversation so your voice can be heard and everyone, is able to work together. Collaboration is key, I believe.
Absolutely. Christine and Brooke, do you guys have some things you'd like to bring in?
Just want to encourage everyone to try and come to some of the Birth Junkies events. The more we meet each other, get to know each other, recognize each other as people and not just pictures on a screen, I think the more we can support each other day to day as well. So, and we're so much fun. We really are so much fun.
I already know it, and I've only met you on email before now, so I'm super excited. I already know we're going to have a great time. We've got 25 emails, I think, at this point. We're just becoming best friends before we even meet in person.
Exactly.
How about you, Christine? Anything you want to add?
No, I definitely agree with Brooke. I think it's hard, we're all so busy and it's easy to kind of be isolated and midwifery can be very isolating, especially when you're working in a state where things are hot, you don't know, like, we always joke, but not really, like, oh, is this person a spy? Is this person who's just trying to find out who are the, the home birth midwives? And that's hard. That's not a good way to start an interaction with someone, but, so I think just to kind of, put on a really positive attitude and welcome everyone in and try to really work well together.
I love it. I love it. Midwife on midwife crime. It's heinous, and unfortunately, it happens a lot.
Oh, so much.
A lot of the CPM regulation work we did in Alaska, it was thwarted at the 11th hour by a nurse midwife lobby. Different midwife lobby, than our type of midwife.
Same.
Right? It wasn't the OBs. They didn't even think, I don't even know if they knew yet. Right? but somebody flagged the APR and Alliance. And all of a sudden there's letters sitting on all of those representatives' desks that we don't know what we're doing. And it's funny because at that time when that happened, we were submitting a bill because we had to, right? Those updates, they thought we were trying to go rogue. And we're like, we are actually just complying with the Department of Commerce. You guys are crazy. Nothing's different. But now that you bring it up, we should open this up a little bit, shouldn't we? Because this is nuts. I laugh now. I wasn't laughing then. So I would also do this one thing, not just to everybody who's listening now, replay, whatever. If you have a perinatal quality collaborative in your state, find them, do an email, reach out, see who's part of it. Perinatal quality collaboratives are funded ways that states are trying to create interdisciplinary collaboration from the top down. They're saying, okay, you got a DPH student, right? A lot of DPH students, a lot of different people doing work to create PQCs, right? To monitor, hey, if we can get more people collaborating, can we get better outcomes, maternal and neonatal mortality in this community while increasing collaboration? So if you have a state PQC, check it out. See if they have advisory committees or transfer committees, join them or join the meetings. You just sit and you can be off your camera. Do listen. It's you're going to get the best scuttle on the street to start with, because you think midwives are chatty. Wait till you get on to an interdisciplinary, like if they're having a whole, it's not just a teaching meeting. You know, you got neonatologists and NICU. It's a great way to meet other providers in your community who actually get to know. And I do encourage, a lot of midwives don't go to those meetings because they feel a little intimidated. But the more we can go, even if you just sit quietly, the more your credential is seen on a Zoom screen, the more that is a lot of what integration is it's normalized, right? That they're normalized, and all of a sudden that, yeah, oh, she's a CPM. That means she's a community midwife. Yeah, no, they do home birth and birth center. Now your actual colleagues are saying these bits about you because you've introduced yourself every time. Hi, my name's Jessica. I'm a home birth midwife. I serve the Anchorage area. I'm a certified professional midwife specializing in low risk care, right? That you're actually this is a great way to get that education out. So, all right, it's 2 o'clock. I want to respect everybody's time. Thank you. Any last questions? All right, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, next week, we're going to do, for anybody who wants to watch next week, I have another interview with Carol Welsh. She is a student CPM, but you guys know Carol Welsh, I can see you, but she has been practicing for a long time. She's a midwife who is now a student CPM to get her credential. But we are doing 5 things to know about apprenticing in Tanzania, because she was invited back twice to go work there. And she has some really good information about, hey, if you're going to go overseas, this is what you're going to experience, and this is what you will not. So but really chatting about that. It's going to be fun. Tell me what you want to say. I want to hear it.
She'll be at the retreat too.
In
She's
August.
one of our keynotes.
Yep, totally. So Carol Welsh will also be at the 10th anniversary CBJ retreat in August, and she's one of the keynote speakers. She's fantastic. She's funny. It's going to be a good time. If you're not on the Substack, which is our email list for Pacific Birth Institute, go there, sign up for it. The replays of these go out the next day. So if you're on the email list, you'll get the replay of every one of our lives to your email if you're on the list. So sign up. Christine, Brooke, Maya, everyone, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I will email you soon because we're going to set up a cool little webinar to start getting some interest for the IV pharmacology class we'll have together. So you and I will keep chatting via email.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful week.